Welcome, my name's Eric Combass. I'm the Development Director here at IGFA. One of my favorite nights of the year. Appreciate everybody coming out. Appreciate the Westin, all you guys do here and during the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. It's always great to see everybody and celebrate the accomplishments of these captains tonight. As we normally do, a little housekeeping here. We're filming tonight, Jeff Aderman in the back there and Mark in the back there. This will be out on YouTube in a couple of weeks, so if we can keep the noise down. Usually if you see me coming, that means you might be a little too loud, so if you could just keep it down for all the people and all the great stories we're going to hear tonight, I'd appreciate that. We've got some great storytellers, so it's going to be a really good night. What we always like to do is start with, some of you might not be IGFA members, you might not realize everything that we do. We're going to show a QR code, but it's also on the back of your name badge, so you can just take your name badge tonight. If you flash on that QR code, you'll get an IGFA digital membership, which will give you access to our world record book, our international angler, all that good stuff, and I think you'll learn a lot about IGFA that we're not just world records, some of which you'll hear tonight. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it's a great prize package too that you could win. So we've got some AFCO, of course Florida Con, you have to, some hats, all sorts of good stuff. So please scan that QR code, it's on the back, it'll be on the screen, it'll also be in the video tonight. All right, we've got an incredible evening. I'm going to invite my friend to the stage, IGFA President, Mr. Jason Stratweiser. Come on up.
Welcome, everybody, to, and this will be my only Halloween pun for the night, the most spirited night in all of sport fishing. Thanks for somebody laughing, I appreciate it. Tonight is all about honoring the captains and crew that make this sport great. These are the pioneers, the innovators, and probably most importantly, the mentors that craft the next generation of watermen and women. So let's give them a hand. I want to be as brief as I can because those of you that have been here before know the best part of this whole show is the stories that you're going to hear. So I'm going to try to get through this housekeeping as quickly as I can. However, there's some important things that I have to do. Eric has loaded me up, and if I don't do it right, he'll probably try to fire me. Okay. Before we get started, we have a very exciting announcement this evening. Earlier this year, we partnered with Chittum Skiffs, and I'm proud to announce that they had donated a Chittum Performance 18-foot, 12-degree boat for the IGFA to raffle off, with all the proceeds going to the IGFA. And tonight, we're here to announce the winner. And to announce the winner, I would like to invite up to the stage the founder of Chittum Skiffs, Hal Chittum, my friend, and IGFA trustee, Andy Mill. All right, Andy, I want you to do your best Academy Awards unveil here.
As I open this, I've been doing this short, shallow water game for over 40 years. I've owned all the boats. Hal has evolutionized the flat water skiff to the point that we kind of wonder, how much better can it get? We all scratch our head, and I don't think it can go much better because it is the finest boat on the planet. And for 50 bucks, this gentleman just won a $120,000 Chittum, Mr. Jonathan B. from Sewell, New Jersey. Again, this was donated by Hal Chittum, the master of boat building. Thank you, Hal.
Thank you very much, Hal. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Yep, love it. Somebody got very lucky tonight, and thanks to everybody that purchased a ticket and to our big partners at Chittum Skiffs. Tonight, as I've said before and very often, is very special as we celebrate remarkable individuals that have made a lifetime and meaningful contribution to the sport of fishing. However, as special as this evening is, it's also a solemn reminder of how ephemeral life is. Unfortunately, earlier this year, we lost a previous Tommy Gifford awardee, Ansel Saunders. Also, one of tonight's honorees, Bobby Buswell, passed away earlier this year. Bobby's wife, Bee, and his daughter, Debbie, are here this evening, and I look forward to celebrating his life with you all tonight. While these individuals are no longer with us, they will ever be enshrined in the Tommy Gifford Awards and be a part of the IGFA. So if I could please ask for a brief moment of silence to recognize these individuals. Thank you very much. Moving on, if you were here last year, I talked about something really exciting that we had just launched, the IGFA Billfish Research and Conservation Endowment. This was spearheaded by Trustee Emeritus Tim Choate. Tim, where are you at tonight? Stand up if you're here. Also part of this is IGFA Trustee Bob Kurz and his wife Sally. This is anchored by a planned gift of $1.3 million, and currently the IGFA is raising an additional $1 million that is going to be matched dollar for dollar for this endowment that will only be used to study and conserve billfish in perpetuity. This campaign was launched in June of last year, and I'm proud to announce that we're now only $86,000 away from meeting our initial match. Tim and several of the endowment donors are here tonight. I'd like them to stand so they can get a round of applause for all they're doing to safeguard the future of billfish. Please stand up. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this endowment will only grow over time and serve to safeguard the future of billfish. If you're interested in helping us close out, get this past the initial finish line, or if you have questions, let's talk. Okay, before we get started with the honorees, I'd like to take a few minutes to recognize the sponsors that help make this very possible, because it takes sponsors to do this. First of all, this evening is made possible by Skip Smith and Skip's Tournaments. Thanks so much, Skip. You provided unparalleled leadership for this event since you conceived it, and I want to thank you for all you do. I also want to thank our Marlin sponsors, IGFA Chairman Roy Croniker. Unfortunately, Roy and his lovely wife Jackie couldn't be here tonight. They send their regrets, but wish the honorees tonight well. Under our sailfish sponsors, courtesy of IGFA Trustee Emeritus Tim Choate, Wild Oceans. Thank you very much. Contender on behalf of IGFA Trustee Amanda Sabin. Northern Lights, thanks to Sam Hill and Kip Purdy. And Bayless Boat Works, thanks to John Bayless. Appreciate you. And on to our Dorado sponsors, we have Ola Yacht Sales, courtesy of IGFA Trustee Ajay Vicente and his son Jose Vicente. Thank you very much. Steve and Patty Huff, thank you so much for your donation tonight as well. We have Friends of Bobby Buswell, courtesy of Bill Miller and Bill Caldwell. And finally, Shiable Construction, courtesy of John Bailey. Thank you all so much for the sponsorship tonight. This is a great party. It wouldn't happen without you. Who here is enjoying the rum? Good. I'd also like to thank Florida Canya and Trustee Emeritus Carlos Pellis for providing the rum tonight. I think we could all agree that Florida Canya is probably the best rum in the world. The IGFA, as I say at all of these events, we're blessed to have just a wonderful board of trustees. They're supportive, they give, they participate, they interact with staff. And I'd like to recognize a few that we have in the audience tonight. So when I mention your name, if you'd please just raise your hand or stand to be recognized. First of all, the official mama of IGFA, Terry Andrews. We've got Gary Carter. Stephanie Choate, Nathaniel Linville, Andy Mill, Sammy Peters, and I think he was supposed to be in attendance, but I haven't seen him tonight, Chad Moss. I don't think he made it. Finally, none of this gets done without staff. It takes a village to pull something like this off. I don't know how many of you have come up to me and said, Jason, you've done a great job with this. I have had relatively nothing to do with this other than saying the words that Eric wants me to say. I want to thank the staff at IGFA, particularly Eric Combass, Kim Strong. They throw incredible events. Our Chief Development Officer, Barbara Sinney, Zach Bellapigna's here. He runs point on the legendary captains and crew process, and Dr. Bruce Polote, our conservation director, has also played a part in this. So please give them a hand. All right, on to the people that really drive this entire process and make this award as special as it is. I want to thank our legendary captains and crew for their guidance and leadership. For those of you that are here, please stand when I call your name. Our chairman, Captain Skip Smith. Unfortunately, our vice chairman, Captain Carl Anderson, came down with a cold, and he was nice enough not to give it to the rest of us, so let's give him a hand as well. Bobby Brown, Bart Garnsey, Billy Harrison, Steve Lasley, the infamous Mike Myatt, Charles Perry, who's here, Bouncer Smith, who's here, Gary Stuve is also here, but not dressed up tonight. I'm a little disappointed at that. And finally, Lori Wright. Okay, it's time to get the evening started. Tonight, Captain Skip Smith will be your master of ceremonies. As you know, Skip serves as the chairman of the legendary captains and crew and is largely responsible for making this award great and rigorous. There is no greater accomplishment, as Mark Sosin said, and I'm probably stealing your line, Skip, sorry for that, than recognition from your peers. Skip is an accomplished and well-known captain the world over. I think everybody here knows this. His body of work speaks for itself. As captain of the Madam and the Hooker, he fished in 25 countries on an 11-year quest to break billfish records. Over his career, he amassed 49 IGFA world records, most of them for billfish. He's also a Tommy Gifford awardee himself, and rightly so. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a longtime friend to the IGFA, Captain Skip Smith.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate everybody coming to support their favorite captains and listen to some really good fishing stories. These lights are a bitch. Man. Anyhow, we also really enjoy the respect that you pay throughout the night by being quiet and let these people get the recognition they deserve. So thank you for that. I do have a couple friends I want to thank. I got my attorney here tonight, Fred Haddad. Thank you, Fred, for being here and covering my ass again. Appreciate that. Get to see so many friends that are over the years that come to support the event, and it's just really pinch yourself to be able to give these guys the recognition they deserve. So, with my little homework out of the way, imagine so many dead marlin I killed. How many? 40 something? Jeez. The old days were great, weren't they? Someone said tonight, hook 'em and kill 'em, man. That was what it's about. Thanks, Jason. Tonight we'll be presenting the Tommy Gifford Award to 6 inductees. Tommy Gifford was considered one of the most innovative blue water charter skippers ever to guide anglers to the major game fish of the sea. He began his chartering career in Miami in 1920. Gifford was the first to use outriggers on the East Coast and first to catch a blue marlin with these new devices. Throughout his 50-year career, he developed an encyclopedic knowledge of game fish and techniques to catch them, like most of these captains we're going to honor tonight. And he served as the guide and consultant to some of the most famous names in saltwater angling back in the old days, including Van Kim Hellner, Charlie Lehman, Michael Lerner, and Ernest Hemingway. Raymond Camp once wrote, "Big game angling has a brief history, but Tommy Gifford's name is sharply etched on every page." In the room this evening, we have several past recipients of this prestigious award. Please stand and be recognized when I call your name. Bubba Carter. Billy Harrison. Charles Perry. Captain Chip Schaefer. Bowser Smith. Paul Spencer. Captain Gary Stuve. Last but not least, the last of the alphabet, Captain Ray Rocher. Tonight we're honoring 6 new Tommy Gifford recipients. Don't come up yet. I'm just going to call the names out and mention everybody. You've seen it already, but here we go. John Batterton, Jerry Black, Arch Bracher, Bobby Buswell, Charlie Chambers, and Steve Huff. Yep, there's some good ones there. The primary criteria for receiving the Tommy Gifford Award from the IGFA is that the captain or crew member must have provided leadership in their trade and have earned the respect of their peers, thus making a meaningful contribution to the sport of recreational angling over an extended period. The nominee must demonstrate that he or she has espoused the ethical angling standards stated by the founders of the IGFA. Behind me on the stage is the Tommy Gifford Award perpetual trophy, and each of these honorees are enshrined on it. The trophy is housed at IGFA headquarters. If any of you have never been to the IGFA headquarters, they have a library that is a lot better than the libraries we had to go when we were at school. But it's got lots of antiques from the past. It's really cool to go to if you ever get the time to go see it, and then you can, those of you that are on there, you can go get a close-up with that and get a picture. But that library is one of the coolest things you could go to. It's really, really awesome. And now, let's begin with our first honoree, Captain John Batterton. Watch the side here. Don't come up yet, John. Stay seated. Tonight, we'll start the evening with Captain John Batterton. John traveled all the way from New Zealand to join us tonight. John is an incredible light tackle captain and set numerous IGFA world records around the globe with Guy and Eric Jacobson. Before we hear from him, I'd like to read a note from John's brother, Michael. Hi there, IGFA. My name is Michael Batterton. My brother is Captain John. We as a family are really appreciative of hearing that John is being awarded the 2024 Tommy Gifford Award. As such, we would have liked to have been present when he was being presented this prestigious award. However, having just returned from a long European trip, the trip through Florida was a little difficult to happen. John's dedication to fishing is a testament to his crew's development and providing an ultimate client experience. John has always wanted to be top class. His skippering achievements in the light tackle arena with Clive Reed, Guy and Aaron Jacobson, the successful Hook and Bull, a GNS boat, and Pacific headquarters are outstanding. This is a testament to the entire teams that he has created in order to achieve these outstanding results, some of which certainly stretch the imagination. These successes also belie the many missed opportunities, but from those experiences have helped develop the strength in their teamwork to get the results they have. His various experiences around the planet would be the envy of many dedicated fishermen, women, either as catches, releases made, in the wonderful world-class locations he fished. No one really enters into an occupation with the expectation of acknowledgement from a governing body, but having had a very close appreciation of what he has achieved and what he has contributed to sport fishing, either in developing his crew's knowledge and training, establishing new ways and fishing techniques from his offshore experiences, trying new techniques such as the early development of the broadbill fishery in New Zealand, either initially via nighttime and then advancing to deep water daytime fishing, pretty much revolutionary and leading to the establishment of the broadbill fishery in New Zealand. His acknowledgement by the IGFA and peers is certainly an accolade he will appreciate, he better. We wish him well in his quest for those remaining goals as he has set for himself, and not that we can see him handling the helm or wheels anytime soon. Cheers. Michael mentioned Guy and Eric Jacobson in his comments. They are with us tonight. Guy, please come up to the stage and tell us a little bit about Captain John. Ladies and gentlemen, come on up. Guy Jacobson, tell us some real good stories about John.
They say you know it, but you know it, I don't know.
Firstly, I'd like to thank everything IGFA does for fishing on our planet. For everyone involved, you have our deepest appreciation. I'd like to say good evening, fellow fishers. What a privilege it is to be sharing with you all to honour Captain John Batterton. To honour Captain John Batterton receiving the Tommy Gifford Award. I thought you may be interested, rather than a lot of fishing stories, in a brief background to what became an amazing journey for JB, Erin and I. I first met John through word of mouth. His reputation as a passionate game fishing captain and light tackle enthusiast seemed to match where Erin and I wanted to focus and be in future. John and I first fished together in 2006 in Vanuatu. John and I were sussing each other out on this trip with a view to forming a game team to light tackle fish and pursue world records. I was looking to take our game fishing in a new direction, a direction that became a passion and put the advantage squarely with the hunted. Foremost, John, Erin and I shared the dream and challenge of pursuing billfish on light tackle. I had fished for a number of years and was looking for a different twist to fishing billfish. I had fairly recently purchased a new boat that, with hindsight and a great deal of naivety, thought would be perfect for the challenges ahead. No sooner had we regrouped in New Zealand than John politely suggested we needed a new boat. I soon flew to Florida to view the GNS Raptor. It was on the small side for liveaboard, so the next day I went to meet with Buddy at GNS factory to discuss a new build. With the earliest build slot out to 3 years, I needed a faster solution. Buddy let me know about the hook and bull coming on the market. I arranged to meet the captain, and after a short test run, I purchased the hook and bull. Thus, a third key component of the team we putting together was complete, and our journey began. JB, you on a daily basis brought so much passion and energy to the day's fishing. Your commitment to succeeding would often see us fish 12-hour days. His efforts to succeed were endless. So much so, my lovely wife Erin nicknamed JB Captain Try Hard and Captain Never Give Up. He is patience personified when it comes to game fishing, but very little else, John. With an amazing instinct for finding and driving on fish, JB's greatest skill from an angler's perspective is his incredible ability to know where the fish and line are, a crucial instinctive skill when connected by small thread to line to your quarry. When it came to our deckies, I can only say I have nothing but respect and admiration for JB's management and training of these pivotal team members. From basics to the art of tracing, the when to grab and when to drop the leader, gaffing, engine management and maintenance, seeing those young people grow into captains, now some of New Zealand's finest, this has been one of life's great achievements for us both, John. JB, you're a true light tackle legend. I wish you and those that fish with you a very successful future journey.
Very well said. Yeah.
Wow, that was awesome. What a great start. Thanks, Guy. Well, let's do it. Captain John Batterton, please come on up to the stage to accept the IGFA Tommy Gifford Award. Come on, John. Tell us a couple stories. How about it, mate?
Hey, you're not wrong about the lights.
The light, yeah. You need bigger font.
Yeah, I know.
Or glasses.
Not sure. Good evening. It's an honour to be here tonight, and firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude
Get louder.
to the IGFA for all they do for us, and the Tommy Gifford Award, the Tommy Gifford Committee for acknowledging me with this award. It's truly been a humbling experience. Thank you very much. This achievement, however, would never have been possible without the dedication, passion and commitment of my crews over the years. And thanks very much to all of you guys. I'd especially like to thank that small group of men and women who went above and beyond working for me. You guys know who you are, and your names will be etched in that award. Without good crew, you're nowhere. I've also been really fortunate to fish with some very good captains over the years, and I'll learn from all of them. But I'd particularly like to acknowledge Harvey Franks for starting me off on this path and being my inspiration and mentor. I'd also like to thank Frank Thompson. I learned so much fishing with him during those seasons on the reef, so much. And yeah, thanks very much, Tomo, you're a good man. I've also been incredibly fortunate to have exceptional owners for long periods of times. Clive Reid with the Harlequin and Guy and Aaron there with the Hook and Bull. Clive gave me the opportunity early in my career to run a very successful charter boat operation in New Zealand, and he also shared our passion for light tackle fishing. We went on and caught several world records together and had many, many successful seasons. And then I hooked up with Guy and Aaron, and to say that the moon and the stars aligned would be an understatement. Their single-minded love and drive for the sport allowed us to seriously focus on fishing for records, and we travel extensively through the South Pacific, the Coral Sea, and some other destinations to do exactly that. They both went on to set multiple world records, but more importantly to me, they've become lifelong family friends. I'd also like to thank Buddy and Steve from GNS. I have no idea how many world records have been caught off their boats, but what I definitely do know is we would have caught a lot of fish if we weren't on one of their boats, but there's some we definitely would not have caught if we weren't on one of their boats. Those boys are awesome. ultimately the most rewarding aspect of what I've been doing has been the opportunity to travel the world to some pretty incredible destinations and meet some really, really good people along the way. And hopefully long may that continue, because I still feel there's so much I want to see and do and achieve with this sport. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the next few years are going to bring. So thank you very much.
Number 2, we're going to talk about Jerry Black. Jerry was a pioneer of the famed North Drop off St. Thomas. First up to tell us a short story about Jerry is Captain Gary Stoof.
I want to tell you about the Jerry Black before St. Thomas. When I was in junior high school, I was a dock rat on sailfish docks in Singer Island, and Jerry was running about a 40-some foot Willis craft. That was the Carolina boat to have back then, and it was all customized. And I started out as a washdown boy. And then he didn't have a full-time mate. When he needed a mate, he'd let me go along and, rig baits and catch sailfish. And first time I ever went to the Bahamas, I went with Jerry Black. And I was a second mate. First blue marlin I ever caught was on that trip in Hopetown. And Jerry was sort of like an older brother / dad. And you could talk to Jerry about stuff you couldn't talk to your dad about. But my dad passed away when I was 17, and he became more dad and less big brother. And when I was screwing up, he let me know about it. But along about 1960, the Jolly Roger was sold that Jerry was running. He went to work for a man named John Wood, and the boat based out of Oregon Inlet in the summer. And they had a Carolina boat that they built up in Currituck called the Olivee. And we started fishing that season out of Hatteras. And back then, if you wanted to catch blue marlin, you either went to the Bahamas or you went to Puerto Rico. Carolina was just sort of catching on, and all of a sudden they had a tournament there at Hatteras, and that was the beginning of it. And that boat was sold, and in 1961, John Wood got some plans, and Jerry was a West Palm Beach guy, and they started it in October in Revere Beach, Florida, right down by the Port of Palm Beach now, in a Quonset hut owned by Mullins Lumber Company. And they started this boat in September, and that boat was in Hatteras the following June, right after I graduated from high school. And they gave me a job. I was a sweeper and a sander. And whatever I wanted to do after school, I'd show up and watch that boat being built. And they had a guy named Burley Pinder who built the hull. He built commercial boats in Revere Beach. And some moonlighters from Rybovich or E&H Boatyard, and they got this boat done. And it was a pretty doggone looking boat, good looking boat, and it ran good. And we had that thing up in Carolina. And we were catching, we were a private boat. We were probably the only private boat down at the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center. And we were catching, we had an experienced angler. We had a boat with 2 motors in it, which was uncommon up there then. And we were catching, our share of fish. And about 62, we were catching, the white marlin showed up real good, and we were catching these fish sort of like sailfish down in Florida. I mean, there was, 4 or 5 a day, something like that, sometimes more. And before that, if it swam, it died. That was the culture back then, and it was a charter dock, and more fish you could put on the boat, you got business. But we were a private boat, so we decided, we're going to start letting these fish go. So, I don't know, this one day we had 3 or 4 fish, and we had another one on, and Jerry said, you get him up to the boat, get him up there like we're going to keep him, get him, hold him by the nose, pull him in the boat, take the hook out, and don't throw him overboard till I tell you to. So evidently there was some chatter on the radio that they couldn't believe anybody was letting a white marlin go. And that's what I did, and after that, I didn't have to do it anymore. So, that was the Jerry that I knew, And I learned a lot from him about life and fishing and navigating. Back then, you know, you went offshore up there then, you went offshore with a compass and a depth recorder. That was it. And you were out of sight of land all day long. And, you know, that's how it was, but that's how it was for everybody. And I had a chance to go to, that boat was sold to Rockefeller and around along about 63, and that job was coming to an end, and Jerry had an opportunity to go to St. Thomas, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I'd just gotten out of high school and had a girlfriend, and, you know, I wanted to, and plus I had a younger brother and a younger sister, and I was, you know, kind of like the man in the family then. I wanted to see them grow, so I didn't go down. I often wondered, you know, I kind of regretted it for a while, but Jerry went down there and did pretty doggone good without me, evidently, and that's why I was here, just to tell you about Jerry that people didn't know from West Palm Beach, and he was one heck of a fisherman up there, and very well respected. I'm glad I have the opportunity to come up here and tell you about him. So, thank you.
Good job there, Luis. I think the part you forgot to talk about is you ran over to the fleet and then you threw that fish overboard just to show them. I'd heard that story just on the way here. Anyhow, that was Gary's shortest story in our 12, 14 years of doing this. Thank you very much there, Gary. Next up, Jerry's daughter, Luann, is here tonight to celebrate his accomplishments in sport fishing with us. Luann, please come on up and tell us another great story about Captain Jerry Black.
I am so very humbled to accept the award from my father, Captain Jerry Black, a man of few words, but you did listen. As many of you know, my father loved to prank people. Captain Black was known for his poker face, which he used while playing poker with David Jensen and John Wayne, to name a few. Apparently, he was born with this gift. When he was 14, he ran away from home and joined the Navy. He turned 15 flying planes before they found out how old he was. He got an honorable discharge and was sent straight home. Once grown, his favorite prank was to walk past a freezer with 3 gentlemen sitting on it, light a cherry bomb, throw it behind the freezer, turn and face them, and carry on a conversation with a straight face until they levitated off of the freezer. His love of fishing started at the age of 4 when he caught his first fish. Once he helped build and deliver Rockefeller's boat to Kinneil Bay, St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands in '62, he never left. I was 5 and loved living there. Like a fairy tale life, my father's achievement of discovering the North Drop, I thought I was moving to Kinneil Bay. Little did I know I ended up on the east end of St. Thomas, USVI. Growing up at a marina makes me think of the famous Harry Belafonte. Growing up on the docks my whole life, I heard many stories which I could never repeat. Some I would like to share. My parents always looked forward to summertime, as that meant parties. Most nights, cookouts at the marina, and also we would have every weekend a very large cookout. He turned an old dinghy into the booze dinghy, which my sisters and I were bartenders. A few things have stuck with me over the years. There was the time Captain Ron Hamlin came back from fishing with a gaff in his rear. He had to climb into the back of my father's truck on his hands and knees all the way to the hospital. I remember the beginning of late parties when my parents would send us up to the house, and then the famous hat came out. If anyone knows my father, it was the Bill hat. I remember laughing until it hurt and being surrounded by love and happiness, even if alcohol may have been involved. I remember so many records made by Peggy. I'm sorry I don't remember her her name, but her boat was the fourth strip on the left. Gloria Applegate, Jerry Miller, Jose Lopez from Puerto Rico, all small test line, to name a few of too many to name. I remember the day Elliot Fishman caught the first blue marlin over 800 pounds. I also remember that fateful day in 1977, and the charter never showed, so the captain and the mates decided to go fishing. I remember seeing a sheet instead of a marlin flag hanging from the boats. It would be the world's record marlin of over 1,200 pounds, now on display at the airport at the Virgin Islands. Larry Martin was the mate that caught the world's record. I don't think you could have slapped the smile off his face. It was the culmination of all the hard work and dedication my father had given to the fishing industry, and the buzz of another of too many to name world records brought into our marina. I could go on for hours with stories, but I'd like to thank you for recognizing my father. Hard work to establish and build up big game fishing in St. Thomas USVI. Not to forget, he also started the release of fish in the hopes of one day his great-great-great-grandchildren may catch one.
Next up, Captain Arch Bracher. Arch is widely recognized as the best white marlin captain in the Mid-Atlantic. He's with us this evening, but before we bring him up, a few people would like to tell us more about him. Pat, Arch's brother, come on up and tell us more.
Boy, I'm sure glad I don't have to follow Chip. Hi, I'm not Arch. We grew up in a military family. Our dad was in the Air Force. He's here tonight, 91 years old. Thank you for your service, Dad. One of the places we were stationed, actually twice, was in the Panhandle of Florida, Fort Walton Beach. And it was actually here at a very early age, Arch learned all the fundamentals it took to be the great bill fisherman he is. First, in those clear waters of the Gulf, he learned how to sight fish and recognize the behavior of the fish. And secondly, he learned focus, which when you're standing on the rail of the pier with 12 or 15 other people, you got to be focused. I mean, they're all looking for the same fish. And that was back before cell phones, so it wasn't the distractions that you have today. All you'd have to do is text one person and they'd look down and you'd get the shot, but that didn't happen back then. Thirdly, you needed patience. I mean, you're standing on a pier and you got to wait for the fish to come to you. As much as we'd like to make offshore fishing about quantity, typically it's about quality, and you got to patiently focus, patiently wait focused for your fish. And finally, you had to be able to be prepared to take care you had to be there to be prepared, take advantage of your opportunity because you didn't know when the next one would come. Arch was always, or is always, ahead of the curve when it comes to innovation. Well, except maybe for his flip phone. Or maybe for his first LP. His first LP wasn't electric, it was Lee powered. Anyway, Arch's very first job was with Steve Richardson in Virginia Beach, and that was on the Bobcat. Steve was one of the best charter captains in Virginia Beach. At the time, there was a really good school bluefin fishery, and that was back in the days of the big snap swivels. You wound your leaders up on a plastic wheelie and deployed them. That's right when Fuji came out with their trolling guides, their new Fuji trolling guides. So Arch took it upon himself to take all the guides off, all the Bobcat's rods, rewrap them with these Fuji guides. He learned the knots that he learned from casting heavy weights on the pier. He made wind-on leaders, and from then on it was wind-on leaders, and it really changed the bluefin fishery in Virginia Beach. Then Arch went to work for Chip, and Chip was like Arch's Yoda. He taught him everything, and Arch was a great student. Anyway, taking what he learned from Chip, and Chip, they did really well in the sailfish tournaments in Florida, and part of that was Chip's his mullet chain teaser that they used. And back then, there was no mullet to buy. Your mate had to go out and catch your mullet, debone them, prep them, and that's what they used. Anyway, Arch got a job in 1988 and went over to Mexico with Scott and Richard Stanzik on the Catch-22. And before he got to Alamorada, he stopped in Fort Pierce, caught a couple hundred mullet, prepped them, took them down to the Keys, and off they went to Mexico. And far as I know, those were the first teaser mullet deployed in Mexico. So all you guys that have to get several hundred mullet before you go out of the country, you can go, gee, thanks, Arch. And then if you're KP or Tom Moody or Legacy Mullets that are making their living on that now, selling mullets, you can say, gee, thanks, Arch. Anyway, so Arch did that for a year, and he came back and went to Oregon Inlet, fished with Mike Merritt, Uncle Bubble. Anyway, while he was fishing with Mike, back there back at that time, the bulky 50W was your typical mid-Atlantic tackle. And Arch was trying to come up with something better. So, using what he learned in the Caribbean, he came home, he experimented with several different hooks, and that's when he came up with the TLD ballyhoo system, which became known up and down the East Coast as the dink rig, and that forever changed mid-Atlantic bill fishing. He went on from there and got his captain's license and ran it. In 1990, started running his boat and fished in North Carolina and Mexico, and was honing his craft. And you got into the early 2000s, and the circle hook was going to be a new requirement for billfish tournaments. And they'd use the circle hook for years in the Pacific, but it was typically flossed on, and that's somewhat time consuming. With the number of bites you get in Mexico between the bonitas and the sails, they needed to come up with a rig that you could rig, unrig, re-rig quickly. Anyway, Arch messed around with some stuff and came up with the swivel circle hook rig, which, it became the standard in both the Caribbean and the Atlantic for years. And that has sort of evolved into the O-ring circle hook rig, which is now the rig used in all the Atlantic, Caribbean, and the Pacific. So that's thanks to Arch. Anyway, he's always trying to make stuff better. This summer, I was up there in Nag's Head fishing some tournaments with him, and we had a tropical storm coming by, and we were blown out, and I'd gone fishing that morning on the pier. Anyway, I came home under the house. Arch has got full face shield on top of his trash can with a Dremel tool and a pair of pliers. He's cutting 2.2 crimps into thirds. And he had an idea of how he could make the big pitch bait circle hook rig, how he could make it stiff rigged without compromising the cable. And it worked. So he's always thinking. Anyway, and Arch won his first big tournament in 1994. It's a Pirates Cove tournament. Anyway, we won it again this year for the third time. So that's... And we get second several times. That's 31 years of being in the mix. That's pretty amazing. Anyway, every tournament that Arch has entered, he's won at least one time. The Boat Builders, the Alice Kelly, the Allison, and many smaller club tournaments. He's also had great success in the Yucatan when he would go to Cancun. After coming in second twice, 2 years in a row, he won the Masters tournament, the prestigious Masters tournament, an unprecedented 3 times in a row, and he won it 4 out of 5 times, only being separated by another second place. Also in Mexico, he won the Red Cross, Isla Mujeres Red Cross tournament, and many other little club tournaments. It's hard as a owner-operator charter boat to compete with all the unlimited expense private tournament boats these days, but Arch still does, and he's somewhat feared. But anyway, the Arch also, he's unlike some, he's very open with his information. I mean, there's not typically, and you can ask Summer, his wife, there's typically not a night in August or September that his phone doesn't ring around dinner time. While his dinner's getting cold, he's talking to a fellow captain from Oregon Inlet, Pirates Cove, maybe even Virginia Beach, telling him what he found that day, what looked good, and even more importantly, what didn't look good, to try to come up with a starting point for the next day. And that's just Arch. Lucky for me, I've got to spend countless hours on the water with him, and and sharing this ongoing experience, and really be involved with many of the highlights. So thank you, Arch.
Damn, that was really impressive. I got a quick guest speaker that's not on the menu tonight. Come on up, Paul Spencer. He's got a quick story for us here. Surprise, Arch.
Every Sunday's getting more bleak, fresh poison each week. We were born sick, you heard them say.
Arch is a great friend of mine, and I couldn't pass this opportunity up. I'm so proud of him and all of his accomplishments. But I wanted to share with you just a quick little story. Arch may not even know this, but my son caught his first billfish, and Arch was the captain, and that was down in Mexico. Daniel did tell me that after it was done, Arch did take him and reprimand him and said that drop back was a little bit too long. So, but I wanted to tell you a story. I fished around Arch. I could stand up here and tell you Arch stories for probably longer than you'd want to be here, but I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to tell you about one time Arch and I was running my charter boat, Arch was running his. We were up in what we call the northeast area. There was slick calm. A school of tunas going along, a pretty good size, about the size of this room, and they would not bite my stuff, my trolling rigs. And Arch, who, I call him a scalehead because he catches everything. And so he had built these spinning rods himself, and they were great. And he had these topwater plugs, and every time he'd go up there and cast them in, he'd catch 2. I'd troll around there, catch nothing. I was getting very frustrated. And my charter's looking at me, and they're looking at him. And finally, I called Arch. I said, Arch, if you don't give me one of those topwater plugs, I swear I will ram your boat. And I was serious. And I think he knew that. And so he pulled over there. He cast one over in my boat, and we were excited. Cut the plug off and tied it on the spinning rod I had, which was a piece of junk. But anyway, we went up there, first cast. Boom, we hooked a tuna. Piece of junk spinning rod. The drag was sticky, zoop, 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 and it broke the line. And my mate was so frustrated, he broke the rod over his knee and said, "This is a piece of," and threw it overboard. So I was so frustrated, I was mad, and I dove out the front curtain. I ran down, my mate and I got, I'm embarrassed to say, a little bit of a fight on the bow deck. And so we were scuffling on the bow deck, and Arch was over there still catching tunas. And to this day, I think the charter that fishes with Arch still now ask about the captain and the mate fighting on the bow deck. Anyway, that was my Arch story. Thank you.
Some of these stories, you just can't say anything about them. All right, next speaker, for the final speaker for Arch, come on up. The worldwide fisherman all over the world, Captain Chip Schaefer.
Thanks, Pat. You said everything that I have written on these pieces of paper here. So I hate to just do the same over again. So we might have questions from the audience, perhaps, or something. But anyway, before we get going here, one of the blessings in doing what I've done, fishing, running boats, is getting to know, of course, a close relationship with the man that works with you, your mate. But also, I've enjoyed very much, and it's been very much a blessing, getting to know the families of these people. And when you get to know Arch's family, you get a good sense of how he's turned out to be the super high quality person that he is, that you always want on your team. May have one thing here that he didn't. Anyway, Pat already touched on one thing, but I'm going to touch on it in a little bit more depth. Arch and Pat never knew their biological father. He was a pilot in the United States Air Force when their mother was pregnant with them, and he was killed in a crash while on active duty operating for the Air Force. And later on, Arch's mother, Joyce, remarried Ken Kirkpatrick, who was also an Air Force fighter pilot. And they provided a wonderful, wonderful family life. Those boys, you ask about their father, Ken's their father, but that's the truth of the story there. Their biological father, they never knew. Wonderful home life, wonderful upbringing. Joyce carried the boys fishing everywhere, and she did create a monster in those two. The Bracher boys are a terror to fish wherever you go. But I want to extend a little further than what Pat went. Their father, Ken Kirkpatrick, the father they know, was an Air Force fighter pilot, but he flew almost every type of aircraft the Air Force had in its inventory. He joined the Air Force in 1955. I love getting with him and getting him to talk. It's kind of hard to get him to talk. And then when you get him going, he'll tell you a little bit about what he did. He was telling me this evening about during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was flying for SAC, Strategic Air Command. And during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we kept B-52s in the air 24 hours a day to find out if the Russians, as a bluff to the Russians, but also as a horrible deterrent to the Russians if they didn't say uncle on that one. And he talked to me about a mission where you would be in the air more than 24 hours a day being refueled, aerial refueling. In Vietnam, he served in Vietnam as both an F-100 Super Saver pilot, but more impressive to me is that he served as the pilot of the O-1 Bird Dog, which was a little single-engine Cessna, which got down right on the deck, got shot at, marked targets to cover for infantry, to support close air support for infantry or whatever, and his job was to get in slow, low, mark the targets, because the jets coming in fast, they couldn't see crap, nothing. All they saw was what he marked, and he would tell them, go on that mark or go on that mark 300 meters northwest or something like that. It was dangerous, dangerous work. And here he is with us tonight. And I want Ken Kirkpatrick to stand up, and I want us to honor an American hero. thank you. I just, I felt moved to do that. I thought it was the right thing to do. We really have a hell of an individual in our midst. Appreciate it. And also, I didn't have much else to say. after Pat had to, I was gonna talk about all his tournament victories and all that, and I especially was gonna talk about the 4 Masters tournaments, which is the one that blew me away. Masters, you know, there's a lot of different tournaments, and some are real competitive, others not so competitive. Well, in the years that we were fishing those tournaments in the 80s, well, really in the 90s for us, in the 90s, the waters off Isla Mujeres was where all the best of the best gathered in the spring. That was, you know, people still go there, and it's still good fishing. But you know, the epicenter of the sport fishing world will jump around. Now it's more so in the Pacific a bit, except for, you know, your East tournaments. But in those days, it was the best of the best. And Arch's record in that, what, 2 seconds and 4 firsts? That impresses me. That's fishing against the best of the best and really coming to the top there. The Pirates Cove, North Carolina Billfish Tournament is the best of the best once again on the East Coast in August. And to win that thing 3 times, guys in Florida are just lucky that Arch doesn't move his boat down there in the wintertime on these Florida winter tournaments. But anyway, it's like I say, as far as all the facts and figures, Pat did a wonderful job. One little thing, I sort of always envisioned somehow that Pat, who talked, as probably most of y'all know, but some don't, is quite the fisherman himself. And his specialty is fishing in the lower and I guess middle keys, but the lower keys particularly, in flats fishing. And while he was talking today, if you'd asked him a question at the same time, he could have told you what the tide is doing at such and such a point on this wind and when you would need to be there. He knows that place like the back of his hand. And somehow the way he has excelled in that, I envisioned sort of like where they inducted the Albatross fleet, where they got several people, you know, at one time in sort of a blanket. I sort of thought we'd have the twins, the Bracher boys. They're twins too. I guess most of y'all knew that. We take it for granted, but anyway. Steve, have I run my mouth long enough? Anyway, I am so proud, so proud to be here to honor Arch, and I'm even prouder to include him among my very best friends. He is one class individual, I'll tell you that, and it's been an honor to have fished around him and with him and to cheer on all that he's doing now in his fishing. I mean, he won, 3 months ago in spite of his advance in age. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Captain Chip Schaefer. Well, come on up, Captain Arch Bracher. Come on up here, tell us the story.
My whole career started with a phone call from Craig Kelly to Steve Richardson. It's amazing how friends can help other friends out. But I got to spend a couple summers fishing with Steve. And then one of Chip's longtime customers, Larry Green, knew that Mike Everly was moving on and set me up with Chip, which those were huge shoes to fill. Mike was probably one of the best mates on the planet. And through his tutoring, and it's a tradition with Chip's mates and my mates to help the replacement go through all the ins and outs of what's expected. And Mike surely did that with me. And then he moved on and fished in Venezuela and places in the Caribbean. And while he was out testing those grounds, he would bring back the information that he learned and share them with Chip and I. And we pushed that over to the East Coast, getting rid of wire, switching to mono, smaller hooks, which all involved in what all of us have learned today. I got to go to Mexico in 1988 with Scott Stanzik, which threw some keys techniques in with smaller hooks, lighter leaders, almost like a live bait set up in a trolling situation, which became very deadly. From there, I got to spend a summer with Brad Simons in St. Thomas, and if anybody's fished with Brad, they know that we were the first boat on the North Drop, and probably the last one as the sun was setting. And what I learned from all these guys was that to sustain a healthy charter business, it wasn't about shuffling people on and off your boat. It was about producing fish, trying hard, making a memorable day for your parties, which I have customers here from as far away as Portland, Oregon, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, and without these guys, none of this would have happened for me. I can remember as a kid in Fort Walton, my parents would charter Tommy Browning's Finest Kind, and we were fishing, this was at 72, we were fishing offshore, which probably was about 25 miles in those days. But Tommy would allow my brother and I to come up on his bridge, and I can still picture the white marlin that we're cutting in the grass around the boat. And to this day, whenever I have an opportunity to show a young man some fish, I always try to get him up on the bridge. None of this would be possible without all the great mates that I've had. It's just countless of hours behind the scenes that they do to make the situation when opportunities arise, we're rigged up, we can take advantage of them, and that's what has been a giant part of our success. Plus, they spend hours and hours representing me in the cockpit with our clients, and they become basically family members to a lot of my people that have fished with me for years and years. The Baileys, 4 generations have caught billfish with us, and thanks for the grandson for keeping it going. I'd like to mention some of my mates. A few of them are here tonight. Gray and Hunter Blunt, which each have had very successful careers as captains in tournaments, and Gray's got a great charter business going. He is very, very good at networking, which is important in this day and age in fishing, and he helps me out on a daily basis with information. Jordan Blunt, their cousin, worked for me, Matt Winchester, Josh Howard, Justin Ringer, who's had a great career fishing, Sean Fanukins, a commercial fisherman in Florida, Lee Johnson's got a very, very good charter business at Oregon Inlet. William Howe has helped out several times and is one of the brightest up-and-coming charter captains. Lee Albardi, 10 years of making me look good. I'm lucky to have a young man, Jake Worthington, now, and without those guys, none of this would be possible. I was very fortunate to be brought up in a fleet with legends, Omi and Tony Tillett, Sam Stokes, Chip, John Bayless, Bull Tolson, Billy and Harry Baum, Tom Krause, Steve Daniels, Paul Spencer, Black and Chartreuse Paul. All these guys made us work harder. Each one of us pushed each other to the limit, and that's what has made our fleet so great. Anyway, I'm very proud to be here, and thank you very much.
I'll tell you what, it says a lot about a guy when you mention the crew and the success you had and how he teaches. I mean, when Chip Schaefer had all his crew here, it was like all the famous names that we talk about now, and now there's another family of people we'll be hearing about in the future. That was great, great, great stuff. Next on my list, Tommy Gifford Award recipient is Captain Bobby Buswell. As Jason mentioned, Bobby passed away earlier this year, but joining us this evening are 2 people that would like to speak on his behalf. First up, Bill Caldwell. Come on out, Bill.
Well, as I was trying to put together what I was going to talk about tonight, We're here to honor Captain Bobby Buswell, who was the greatest of all time fishing captains on the west coast of Florida, without a doubt. But first, I have to recognize two Tommy Gifford Award recipients who inspired me to nominate Captain Bobby, and that would be Captain Skip Smith and Captain Bubba Carter. I had been fishing in the Los Sueños tournaments in Costa Rica from the beginning, and I think it was about 2017 that I was lucky enough to fish with Skip Smith, the angler, not the captain. And we had a blast. I was on the left side, he was on the right side. And I'll never forget every morning, Billy, the tip of the day. And he'd come up with something to tell me, and I just sucked up every little bit that he ever told me. And his desire and willingness to share all the tremendous years of experience that he had in the greatest detail reminded me so much of Captain Bobby Buswell. Then I got to fish with Bubba Carter, and he was so much fun. You'd go up on the flying bridge with him. He's a good conservative, which I appreciate. And we would head on offshore. I had to put that in there. We would head offshore, and he would tell me this story, this story, this story. Bubba wanted to go catch fish. Who else would ever take us 74 miles off of Costa Rica to catch sailfish? That's Bubba. And that was Bobby Buswell. So about that time, Bobby's daughter, his daughter Debbie, who's right over there, and B, we're going to put on an 89th birthday for Bobby. And all of a sudden, you know, I'd mentioned to both Bubba and Skip about this guy, Bobby Buswell, who was absolutely the best on our whole coast. So we got it, you know, he is like you guys. You know, they were inducted in the Hall of Fame. I said, we have to do something. Well, all of a sudden, Bobby's 89th birthday, I go, my buddy Captain Bill Miller, who fished with him for years as his deckhand, I said, we got to work right now. we got to put together the package to promote Bobby and nominate him for the Tommy Gifford Award, because he was the best ever. Now about Captain Bobby Buswell. Bobby was born March 5th, 1933. He came to St. Petersburg, Florida in 1937 with his parents. His dad, Frank, he was another great patriot. He flew bombers that were built down to Brazil, over to Europe during World War II. Bobby received his captain's license at the age of 18 years old and ran a charter boat, the Lucky Strike, out of Hubbard's Pier on St. Pete Beach. With 3 other charter boats and 2 head boats running out of the pier, it didn't take Bobby any time at all to establish himself as the best and the most successful charter boat business of the area. Even Bill Miller uncovered this gorgeous log from 1955 of his charters, and he must have run 250 charters per year. $15 a day, $8 for a half a day. And in 1955, my father caught his first tarpon with him, and it even had the date on it, and here my dad must have given him 15 bucks. But quite the deal. Bobby was constantly featured in the St. Petersburg Times fishing column, showcasing his incredible catches of tarpon, kingfish, grouper, and even sailfish. Bobby had 4 consecutive days one spring where his party, charter boat party, caught 300 head of kingfish a day, 4 consecutive days on live bait. I mean, just absolutely incredible fisherman. With already this excellent reputation, Bobby was, and he'd been the charter business, he was sought out by everyone and later began running multiple private boats, many of them at the same time. One of the early private boats Bobby ran around 1961 was a little 27-foot Chris Craft flybridge sea skiff, the Bojo, owned by Dr. Robert Hamburger. We were hoping that Doc's, one of his grandsons was going to be here this evening, but I think it was sold out, so he couldn't make it. But, he'd take family and friends, king fishing, tarpon fishing, grouper fishing. Absolutely incredible. Well, the following year, in 1962, Doc bought the first 31 Bertram on the west coast of Florida, also named the Bojo. My dad, who I'd mentioned had caught his first tarpon with Bobby, was really good buddies with Doc. And since Doc had a son that was only a couple of years younger than me, who Skip will remember we called him White Wigga Wobby. He was always on the right rigger, and his brother had a lisp, so it was White Wigga Wobby. Isn't that right, Skip? Doc would invite my dad and I to go fishing with him. I'd sit next to Bobby right on the flying bridge. He had a scratcher machine, no GPS. We talked earlier about somebody said just the compass in time. That's how they fish. Sometimes he'd even go find a particular ledge. He'd be looking for a ledge. He recognized the ledge, and he'd go take off at 215 degrees for 14 minutes and go out and catch some fish. Bobby fished Doc Hamburger when he won the St. Pete J.C. Tarpon Roundup in 1966, which qualified Doc to fish in the Masters tournament in Palm Beach in 1967. Doc won it. First time. First time he entered, he won it. But he's a good light tackle guy, and he won the thing. Bobby was a great teacher, teaching me how to find grouper as a kid and learn how to catch them. Actually, Captain Terry Stansel's dad, Captain Ray Stansel, I worked for him a couple years later as his deckhand. And he taught me how to what we call a cracker cast. And a cracker cast was developed, I'm pretty sure on the west coast of Florida by, I think, B. Buswell, by her, one of her relatives, and taught Bobby how to do it when he was about 11 or 12 years old. And we would use a 9-foot rod with a conventional reel, not a spinning reel, like everybody does nowadays, conventional, and you do this cracker cast over your head like that. Incredibly accurate, incredibly long, very, very neat cast. And one day, and like I said, Ray Stansel had taught me how to do it. And one day, first part of the season, fishing out of Boca Grande, I come down there, and all of a sudden, I was getting backlash. Just couldn't figure out what was going on. I see Bobby at the fuel dock. I come by, hey, Bobby, watch me cast one time. What am I doing wrong? He cast one cast. He told me what I was doing wrong. Corrected it, and just like a golf pro. I mean, he was, that was the kind of guy he was. At the same time, he ran the Vanda, a 41-foot Hatteras, the Pix, a 40-foot Chris Craft, the Blue Chip, a 41-foot Hatteras, and as Bill Miller tell you, went down to the Bahamas and did great. Bobby moved up to Tarpon Springs a little bit later. There's a gag grouper bite up there, and Bill was up there. In fact, he hired Terry Stansel as his deckhand after I told him who to call, and they caught thousands and thousands of pounds of grouper. And I think one summer Bobby sold 40,000 pounds of grouper that the charter did. He was just absolutely incredible. Bobby continued to fish tarpon during the summer off of Boca Grande on the Little Tiger, a 28-foot Walter Pryor with a short tower. Most guides fished the pass, but he would go out on the beach and and chase the tarpon down the beach, and he'd cracker cast at them, and a lot more fun than just sitting there at the pass fishing with a big lead and hooking tarpon. But he was so good that one year his owner insisted, we're going to fish the world's richest tournament in the pass. Bobby goes, okay. So he goes in the pass, 58 boats in, he got second place. Not surprising at all. He was that good. He would catch 300 to 400 tarpon a season down there beach fishing. One day he caught 31. His party caught 31 tarpon. Bobby fished well into over 70 years old. He's married to lovely Bee for 71 or 2 years. And he said he always missed fishing, but missed the wonderful friendships he made over the years even more. Bobby developed a following of clients, deckhands, turned captains, and many, many anglers who would watch his legendary techniques and accomplishments in awe. He never hesitated to teach any and all how to become a better fisherman and person. He called his son. His sons called him pretty much on a daily basis as he got old. And, as he got a little weak and stuff like that, you'd bring up the fishing topic, and he would come right back. I mean, it just would give him a huge boost and really get him going. All the captains from south of Naples to north of Clearwater know that Bobby was the best of the best by a long shot. No captain from the West Coast, Florida, is more deserving to be recipient for this prestigious International Game Fish Association Tommy Gifford Award than Bobby Buswell. We knew his health was failing, and we hoped he could make it this evening. The greatest thing was Bobby was told he was picked for this.
Next up, Captain Bill Miller. You got a few more stories for us here, Bill?
We got a couple. Captain Bobby Buswell was so good, it's going to take two of us to get him in the Hall of Fame tonight. When I was a young kid, and maybe you too, I had superheroes. I was a big New York Yankees fan. Mickey Mantle was Mickey Mantle was my guy. He was a superhero to me, but also Superman. But the real superhero was Babe Ruth. I never saw him, but he hit more home runs than anybody at that time. And the stories, his big stories, were what legends are made of, sort of like Captain Bobby Buswell. When I was a young fish head along the west coast of Florida, Bobby Buswell was Babe Ruth to me and many others. It didn't matter what kind of fish you wanted to catch, he could catch more than you. Now back then, most all the boats were inboard, so those charter boats. But if you wanted to fish inshore and catch snook, redfish, or trout, he could do that and catch more than you. Offshore grouper, sailfish, kingfish, forget about it. You could never win. He'd catch more than you. A lot of people don't know that he traveled the commercial handline kingfish circuit with his dad for years. So if you're going to go into a kingfish tournament with him, you're going to lose. In tarpon, as Billy was saying, his records will never be broken. I tried as hard as I could. I couldn't do it. After he left the charter boat world for the private boat world, he traveled all over. With St. Pete and Tarpon Springs as a home base, he fished Palm Beach, Stewart, and Keys in the winter, at least 2 months in Boca Grande for tarpon, all through the Bahamas and Northern Gulf, Destin mainly, Panama City some in the Northern Gulf, for billfish, blue marlin, sailfish, tunas, and things like that. There wasn't a fish he could catch or a boat that he couldn't keep in Bristol condition. The IGFA Tommy Gifford Captain's Hall of Fame is filled with tremendous fishermen. Tonight, there's one more. On behalf of his wife of 72 years, Bee, who is here tonight, and his daughter Debbie, who is here, his daughter Diane, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and some great-great-great-grandchildren, and lots of his friends, Billy and I humbly accept this IGFA Tommy Gifford Award for Captain Bobby Buswell.
The next Tommy Gifford Award recipient is Captain Charlie Chambers. A lot of you folks probably haven't heard of Charlie, but you should read his resume. It's amazing. Charlie was an early pioneer off of Cairns big game fishery. His legacy includes leading his anglers, Bob and Dolly Dwyer, to multiple IGFA world records exceeding 1,000 pounds. Charlie passed away in 1981, but his legacy will forever be enshrined as a Tommy Gifford Award honoree. His children, Chris and Owen, sent a note I would like to read. My brother Owen and I write this to you with great pride and appreciation for bestowing the prestigious IGFA Tommy Gifford Award on our late father, Captain Charlie Chambers of Sydney, Australia. His achievements in game fishing went far beyond skippering several of the top game boats in Australia. They included catching one of the largest great whites ever taken in Australian waters and holding a gold pin and records for many of his own catches over 3 decades, starting in the early 1950s. He also made traces and lures for other anglers and was able himself to do every engine and electrical repair required to keep a game boat in top condition. He is one of the first skippers to search out the big marlin, known as granders, along the Great Barrier Reef and the far north Queensland waters and around the now famous Lizard Island fishing grounds, and guided legendary anglers to some of the most significant captures in Australia's great fishing history. Dad was both a very quiet and humble man and was more than well loved by all who knew him. He was highly respected by the game fishing fraternity, particularly for his expertise in every facet of the sport, and especially for his profound knowledge in all areas of the fishing gear used in the associated boats. Again, we thank the IGFA with the knowledge that Dad would greatly be honored by this recognition and of the award he will receive posthumously. Although neither Owen and I can attend the award ceremony, we will be celebrating in Sydney, lifting a glass to our amazing father, Charlie Chambers, to all the other recipients of the Tommy Gifford Award, and to our International Game Fish Association. Yours sincerely, Chris and Owen Chambers. Let's give a big round to Captain Charlie Chambers. Next, our final honoree is Captain Steve Huff. Steve is already a member of the IGFA Fishing Hall of Fame, is one of the few to be recognized as both of the Hall of Fame and now the Tommy Gifford Award recipient. In fact, there are only 4 others: Al Anderson, Al and Buddy Merritt, and Peter B. Wright. And Peter's wife is here tonight, Erin. Erin, thanks for coming tonight. Steve's sons, Captains Dusty and Chad Huff, would like to say a few words about their dad, probably mostly nice. Come on up, Dustin and Chad. Let's see what you got.
First, I'd like to congratulate all the recipients tonight. It's quite the honor. Congratulations, guys. It's an incredible honor to be on this stage tonight to introduce our life's hero.
Stop it. Stop it.
I would like to thank the IGFA and the legendary Captains and Crew Committee for making this all possible. Steve Huff has become an icon name in the world of saltwater fishing, but he is Dad to us. Dad always tries to figure out why these things are happening to him. After all, he just pushes a boat around with a stick. he has a hard time figuring out that it's much more than that. From riding around on his bike catching snook in Miami to burning down the catwalk on Long Key Bridge, yes, he literally burned a path to the Keys. From his rental Long Key colony, he set out to continue making his mark on the fishing world. Watching him bring a sparkly ski boat from California and dismantle it in our carport, we thought that was a normal thing to do. Fish all day and then build a better boat at night. This happened 3 times in our childhood. The next time was with the Dolphin Super Skiff, working on it at night and on any given chance, while all the while trying to tie better flies and figure out how to catch the giant tarpon in Homosassa. Finally, settling on the super skiff as a weapon he needed, he and Del Brown set out to catch permit on a fly rod. Then he decided to pursue his favorite fish of all, the snook. And off to Everglades City he went. So Steve Huff has done all these great things. Caught millions of fish, set numerous world records, and made numerous great friends. But there's one thing that defines him. What has really always amazed us is that in a relatively small community beset by competition, and let's face it, we can be really hard on each other and critical of each other's success, he is always universally admired for doing things the right way. He's always been incredibly humble and treated everyone with the same amount of respect, whether you were running Procter & Gamble or dipping shrimp at the bait shop. To be honest, he might be more drawn to the shrimp peddler. What's always amazed me about my dad is just what Dustin was saying, how universally admired he is. To everyone that in the short amount of travel that I've done, every guy I've talked to, every trout guide in Montana or North Carolina, to permit guides in Mexico, to golden dorado guides in the remote Bolivian rainforest, to even young kids just starting out with a flat skiff trying to be a guide in the Keys, whose parents probably weren't even alive when he picked up a push pole. He is held up as this unattainable ideal that everyone strives for. The kind of universal respect that does not come by accident. It comes from a lifetime of leading by example, by not ever thinking you're owed something, by working harder than anyone else in their right mind could or would, and earning it every single day. Standing on the back of that skiff with a push pole in his hand, driven not by fame or recognition, but purely by the love of fishing, by the idea that the next great fishing experience could be just another couple shoves of that push pole away. Sorry. I got a story that I thought was kind of cool. Fishing this permit tournament in March, and if anybody that wants to know when the worst weather in the spring is, it starts the second Tuesday of March. There's a permit tournament in Key West called the March Merkin, and it's always the most horrendous weather. It's been won a couple times by only catching one fish in the entire tournament. In this one particular tournament, I'm standing on the back of the pole, and we hadn't seen anything on the back of the boat. We hadn't seen anything all day, and the wind's blowing 30. I'm straining with everything I can just to move the boat forward a couple inches. You can barely hear each other on the boat, on the skiff, by the sound of your clothes flapping in the breeze, and you're staring into this dark water, streaked with foam, squinting, trying to just see a hint of something. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing out here? Half the people had already taken a shore lunch. And I thought to myself, what would my dad do right now? And the unwavering fucking answer that came back was, keep fucking polling. So when I got back to the dock that night, and I was talking to a couple buddies of mine, other guides, Joe Rod and Dougie Kilpatrick, and I was telling them that story about how, I knew I couldn't disappoint my dad, and it was wild. They both had the exact same story. They said that they were out there and they thought, what would Steve Huff be doing right now? And that's what kept them going. And actually, Dougie, one of those people, won the tournament with Nathaniel's wife by catching the only fish caught in that tournament. So that idea, I think, that makes Dustin and I the most proud, is knowing that this legacy, the fact that he makes an entire profession of skiff guides better by the example that he has set. And those words, what would Steve Huff do, have led to some amazing fishing experiences that would have never happened otherwise. So I'd like to introduce you to a great husband, dad, pops, friend, fisherman, hero, and human we know, Steve Huff.
May you be as fascinating as a flat bracelet. May you keep the chaos and the clutter off your desk. May you have unquestionable health and rest.
Come on up there, Captain Steve Huff.
May you get a gold star on your next test. May your educated guesses always be correct. And may you win prizes shining like diamonds. May you really own it each moment to the next. Or may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Whoa. Or may the road less paved be the road that you follow. Whoa. Well, here's to the hearts that you're gonna break. Here's to the lives that you're gonna change. Here's to the infinite.
Honest to God, I don't know how I got here. I was just started guiding. Tomorrow is the anniversary of my first day of pulling a boat around with a client on board. So it's 56 years ago that I picked up a push pole. And I didn't know dick all. That's a fact. I thought I knew something about it, but I didn't. And I knew it's such a small area, if it was in your eye, you wouldn't notice it. But I want to, I have this most incredible family. And two of them you just met. Dustin, who's married to Maggie, and I don't know if she'll stand up or not. She's kind of timid, but today, on Halloween Day, is Maggie's birthday. She is a most magnificent daughter-in-law or daughter. I love her to death, and she's also the mother of two of my grandsons who are over there, Taylor and Colton Huff. My son Dustin's two children. Zach Huff is over there. He's my grandson with his fiancee Rachel, my granddaughter Kelly, and her husband Tyler, and my daughter Barbara, and the luckiest thing that ever happened to me in my life is my wife Patty, who when we got married, I told Patty, I love you to death. I'll never love another woman, but I do love to fish, and I'm always going to go fishing. And she signed on to that. And a lot of days, even now, I get up in the morning and I go, I'm out of here. I'm going to get in my little boat, and I drive it out there and cast my ass off, try to catch something, and don't always succeed. But once that wind hits my face in the morning, I own my life. And I think a lot of these guys in this room, when they hit that throttle in the morning, that's the best time of the day. When that wind hits you in the face and you own your life, and nobody says, go here, go there, you just go. And go fishing and spend your time in the most beautiful place in the world. So, I want to congratulate all the other honorees tonight, and I'm so proud to be a part of people that actually get it done, the people that get their ass out of bed first thing in the morning, drudge down to the boat, blowing like hell, and get in that thing and go out there and make it happen. And that's significant. And they make heroes out of anglers, and they also make best friends out of anglers. And a little skiff, a little 16-foot skiff, you spend 8 hours a day with someone that you don't know. But in some cases, I've fished 50 days a year. Del Brown, 55 days a year. It's a pretty intimate atmosphere. And anything, by the end of a few years, you know everything about that human, and they know everything about you. You laugh, you cry, you share personal stories. I've had people tell me, I've never told anybody about this in my life, but I want you to know this. And the first thing I say, as long as it doesn't involve sheep, I'm ready to listen. So, I thought that was pertinent, actually, because I didn't want to know otherwise. I have to thank the IGFA for perpetuating this magnificent award for the people that actually get out there and sweat and swat and rig and cuss, and that's the game, man. That's the game. If you haven't heard bad words in your life, get on a charter boat or a skiff, and then you will find out in a hurry. So that's it. I am a champion of fishing guides. You know, I get the picture. I know what they go through in the morning. They get some spastic on the bow of the boat that said he can cast and he can't hit his toe, you know. And you're supposed to go out there and make this guy a hero. So it's a curious business. I mean, I wouldn't trade. I've got more horseshoes up my ass than anybody ever. I have been so lucky, starting with meeting my wife and having these kids and these great family, and then they all support me, and I go out there and float around. And basically, I told my mother when I was a little kid, I'm going to be a charter fisherman, and she said, they're all a bunch of drunks and bums. And I said, I'm in, you know? So, yeah. And here I am with this ridiculous honor, which the IGFA, I have to thank the IGFA to perpetuate this honor for these people that really fish. I mean, I was awarded this Hall of Fame award, and I was like thrilled to death, but these are the guys that get it done. Their hands are bleeding, and their face is freezing, and they're going out there with spray coming over the bow and eating whatever you have to eat to get out there and make a person happy and put out a huge amount of effort to see this guy become successful, regardless of his skill level and regardless of his pomp, and he knows he's the greatest fisherman in the world, and you have to tell him he's not, but in a kind way. At least you start that way. Then you tell him about the dick that he really is, but I have been so blessed. There's a handful of anglers, some of which are in this room, but I've fished so many great, where they get on the bow and you go, whoa, this guy can do it. You know, this going to happen. And it does happen. As long as they can tough it out with this old guy, we'll make something happen. There's a guy in this room that booked me, and we fished 8 years. We caught 1 fish. 8 years, probably 15 or 20 days a year for 8 years. Never pulled a fish over the side of the boat, not one. And first of all, the guy's got to be a knucklehead, right? But he kept paying me and he kept coming, and it's like, what the hell? This guy's crazy. But eventually we caught 1 fish. And the target fish was a tarpon on 6-pound test with a fly rod. And yeah, 8 years, 8 years. Not to say that we didn't, in those 8 years, we'd lost so damn many of these things, every different way. Fought them, hooked them one day and lost them the next. 17 hours was the longest battle. Does that sound smart? Maybe not. But I have to tell you, we did succeed in a big way ultimately. He's sitting right there, and he's a knucklehead. He's still a knucklehead. But he's my brother. I love these people. So these people that have fished with me all this time, and all the guides that are out there that get up in the morning and shove a boat down the flat into the wind and try to make somebody happy. That's what we do. And that's who I am. Thank you.
Before I close it out, I'd like the people that got the award to come up here so we can get a group picture. So Arch and everybody there, Luann, come up for Jerry Black, and you know all the rest of them there. JB, you guys can come up for Bobby, Bill, and Bill. Steve, you're going to come back up for a group picture. While they work their way up for a group picture, I'd like to thank everybody for being so respectful and keeping it quiet and let these people get the recognition they deserve. It's so respectful of everybody to do that, and we really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.